And so Brenda and Manpreet are both on your team, right? Just to
Yes, they are.
get
Yeah.
a good sense, okay, of who's in
Yeah.
the room.
Perfect.
Hi, Paula.
Hi.
There we go. Perfect. Well, we're going to start things off, and we've got Paula Stortz from University of Guelph here to share with us her information on their co-op program.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon to learn a little bit about our co-op programs at the University of Guelph. So my name is Paula Stortz, and I'm one of the co-op coordinators in our Experiential Learning Hub. I work specifically with the Arts and Applied Sciences group, but we are a centralized office, which means all things co-op are handled by the same team, which makes things a little bit easier for employers looking to hire from a few different disciplines, or just in general for employers looking to get involved with experiential learning at the University of Guelph. So firstly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our recruitment portal, which is called Experience Guelph. And this is a website, an online job board that is visible to both current U of G students and alumni. So my presentation is going to focus mainly on co-op, but I will give a brief overview of the career side of the portal as well. So the career side would be used for any non-co-op roles where employers are looking to target graduating students or recent grads, as well as master's and PhD students. So here we have a summary of the hiring process for the co-op and career portals, just for reference. Kind of focusing on the co-op side, students are available for 4, 8, or 12-month positions, depending on their program. And those roles start at the beginning of each academic term. So that would be January for winter, May for summer, and September for fall. So the hiring cycle begins about 4 months before the start date. So I'll talk a little bit more about the timelines for this coming summer later in the presentation. But these students would have completed 2 to 4 years of academics before going out for their first co-op, kind of depending on where they are in their program, which can be really great because it means that they have learned quite a bit in their program before starting work. So as you can see, applications are collected either through the job portal, which would keep your contact information hidden from the applicants, or you can have students apply directly to your email or your website if you're using an in-house recruitment tool. I would say most of our employers do utilize the Experience Guelph collection process for applications just to kind of keep things streamlined and avoid a lot of follow-ups from students. But students are used to applying via email or your website if you have specific tracking that you need to do online. So I do just want to mention that we don't do the rank and match system that a lot of other schools use. The way we do our co-op hiring is really similar to a traditional job search. So this means that you can post and hire within your own timeline, and we have a continuous employment process. So that means that you could post a job today and be interviewing within 4 business days if you're working on a really tight deadline. So this also means that there's no obligation to make an offer to a co-op student if you don't find the right fit during the interview process. I know with rank and match, oftentimes employers are asked to rank students and they may end up with, say, their fourth or fifth choice. But the way we do it is more like a traditional job search where you can make an offer, and if there's no other students that you're interested in, you can always repost and do a second round of interviews at any time during the hiring cycle. So, facilitating all of the administrative parts of recruitment is our employment services team. So, as you can see, they are able to assist you with scheduling co op interviews and extending offers to students. So, again, this keeps communications with students coming from the school so that you don't get a ton of follow up emails from applicants looking for an update on the job status. So next, I'll just go over the summer 2022 timelines and some hiring strategies for co-op students. So co-op is offered in over 50 programs, including business, computing, science, engineering, and the arts. And we have over 4,000 students currently enrolled. So each student must complete between 3 to 5 co-op terms, and this depends on the program that they're in. The positions must be full-time paid roles, as students need to complete a minimum of 420 hours for each co-op term. So most students who are working full-time would end up completing more than that minimum, but this minimum number allows some flexibility if, say, your business has some downtime where hours might be limited during that co-op period. And at the end of the presentation, I will also include a link to our salary guide, which just gives you an idea of what other companies in your industry might be offering in terms of wages for students. So as I mentioned before, students are available year-round for 4, 8, or 12-month roles, depending on their program. And for those in the longer roles, it's almost always anchored by a summer. So for example, our accounting students are available for a winter-summer 8-month co-op, and our political science students are available for a summer-fall 8-month co-op. So now looking at the timelines for posting, we have this table which shows the posting period for each term. So for this coming summer, January 4th is the first day that students would be able to view the co-op postings. And the first deadline for applications is January 17th, with interviews and offers beginning later that week. Now, this is just for the roles that are queued up at the beginning of the recruitment cycle to ensure that all employers have a fair chance to interview students. So after these dates, for any new postings, we typically post for 3 to 5 business days, and then interviews and offers can take place anytime after that. So I also wanted to go over some hiring strategies to help give you an idea of how to best present your opportunities to students. So I always suggest that employers be open to posting broadly. So anytime we get a new opportunity come in, the co-op coordinators target the posting to relevant programs. So this means you would receive a variety of applications from only students with the appropriate skill set. So, for example, if you have an HR role, sometimes employers will say they only want business students to see the job, but our art students can actually minor in HR. And so many of our psychology students are actually looking to get into human resources. So we often suggest that employers kind of stay open to posting broadly, and we can always refine the criteria as you go if you find that isn't working for you. So in terms of job descriptions, the more details you include, the better, including information about the rate of pay, work location, whether that be in office or remote, and detailed job duties can always help students self-assess if they would be a good fit for the role, and it avoids you having to interview anyone who doesn't have a good understanding of what the job will entail. So we don't require our students to apply to a certain number of jobs or anything like that. So we do allow them to kind of self-select what roles fit their skill sets and experiences. So we can also work with you to make your job posting more competitive or appealing to students if you find you aren't seeing the application numbers that you would like kind of the first time around with posting. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about hiring junior versus senior students. So what's great about junior students is that they will have more co-op terms ahead of them. So you can always rehire them in the future, and many students end up returning to the same company but take on new responsibilities for each co-op role. And then when it comes to hiring senior students, of course, they're closer to graduation. So if you're looking to use co-op as a way to attract full-time employees, they can also assist with mentoring junior students if you're looking to hire a few students. So now I'm going to talk specifically about what makes Guelph's co-op programs unique and how this can tie into your business model. Here we've got a picture of our Griffin statue for anyone who's ever been to our campus. This is one of the iconic landmarks. So when looking at how co-op can benefit your company, it facilitates knowledge transfer between industry and academia, which means that new methodologies and practices that are being learned by students can be brought into your workplace. And we've also found that a lot of employers enjoy having young talent and new ideas that helps their staff stay in touch with another perspective. And it also allows staff to gain managerial or supervisor experience. So just looking at the human resources side of things, students can be used to assist with short-term projects, and many employers and students treat co-op as kind of a long job interview where you have the opportunity to see if it's the right fit and lay the groundwork for that student to come back in a full-time capacity, fully trained after graduation. Another benefit is building your brand on campus. So students tend to share their experiences with each other, and it's not uncommon for us to hear a student say, my friend worked there last summer and the manager was really great, so I want to try working there myself. So this is a big benefit for smaller businesses, especially outside of Guelph, in terms of attracting new talent from U of G to your company. So now when looking at Guelph specifically, our employment services team makes the hiring process much easier than posting on a general job board, and that they will handle the posting process and send the applications to you and handle kind of the back and forth of scheduling interviews with students and extending offers. So we also embed a lot of developmental pieces for students in our co-op programs, which means that the quality of learning is pretty good in that we will go over these pieces a little bit more later, but we ask students to create learning goals at the beginning of their co-op, which are intended as ways for them to reflect on their experiences. And it's also a goalpost for their development within the co-op role, and they share these with their supervisors at the beginning of the term. So at the end of the term, there is an employer evaluation, which is just a way for employers to comment on general categories like communication and work ethic. And this grade actually appears on their transcript. So our students are really invested in doing well in their co-op position. Finally, I just wanted to mention that all of our programs are accredited by CWEL, which is a governing body for cooperative education. So this means that programs are held to those standard of quality. And not every co-op program at other institutions are accredited, so this is just something we like to mention. And then for the financial hiring incentives, because our programs are accredited, our employers are eligible for the Ontario Cooperative Tax Credit, which can cover up to $3,000 for each placement. And then in addition to this, there are also federal funding programs which can be used in conjunction with the tax credit. So the one I've highlighted here is the SWIP program, which has been used by a lot of our employers this past year as the criteria became a lot more flexible during COVID. This funding program can cover up to 75% of the wage per co-op student. I've provided the link in this slide, which will be shared with you, and it explains the various funding partners your company can apply to. So this application does need to be done in-house by your financial team, but of course we can provide some guidance on timelines since we're working with employers who are applying for similar funding. So next, we're going to look at addressing some of the challenges we've heard from employers looking to hire students and provide some solutions used by other organizations that work with us. So not enough time to supervise students or not enough work for them to complete. We found that many employers, especially smaller businesses, will have their students working with various departments or under different supervisors. And that's actually a great way for students to experience kind of various aspects of your company. And a lot of students find it really enriching to kind of have a variety of tasks in their co-op role. Too much time dedicated to the employment process. So many employers will be looking to hire for those longer term roles because of this to avoid having to do interviews every 4 months. So this can be a really great solution for kind of longer term positions or projects, depending on the role. Because there can often be a learning curve for the first few months. So longer term employment can help cut down on that time spent hiring and training. Also, our employment services team really does make things as easy as possible for employers in terms of handling all of the communication pieces. So training new staff, some of our employers will actually include a small overlap in students so that the current student can train the new one. We also have had some students tasked with creating training manuals or materials for their co-ops. And those are used for future training purposes, especially for businesses who are hiring a student for the first time and kind of looking to establish that ongoing role. So in terms of dealing with performance issues, every student has a co-op coordinator working with their program. So we're here to support the student in not only finding employment, but also making sure they're performing well. So if there's ever an issue with attendance or performance, we're always available to connect with the student and speak to them about the academic repercussions of underperforming during their co-op. Because there's a strong academic implication for students to do well in their position, this doesn't happen very often. And we also do a midpoint check-in with both the student and employer to make sure everything is going according to plan and address any performance issues at that point. So what to expect when you hire a co-op student? There would be the onboarding process, giving them access to any tools they would need, whether it be computer or software access, along with company orientation and any job specific training. So this can be job shadowing if you don't have a training manual in place. And this doesn't necessarily need to be done all within the first few weeks. Some students will kind of learn little bits of the role as they go. And then, as I mentioned, the site visit. So this is just an informal check-in at the midpoint of the term to assess performance to date for the student. So I also mentioned the evaluation, which is completed online and goes on the student transcript. But I also wanted to mention the student work term report, which is the academic piece that students need to complete on their own time. So each program is a little different, but typically it's a report or a reflective paper about what they are doing during their co-op. So some employers have actually built this into the role where the student will tie the report into a project they're working on. So for example, one of my international development studies students is doing her report on the research that she's doing for a project within the company. And as I mentioned before, we have had students create training manuals for employers, which they have also used as part of their academic report. So finally, I've just included some links to our website resources with more information about our programs, hiring incentives, and the salary guide. And I've also included our contact information and a link to our job portal. If you have any questions after the presentation time, please feel free to connect with me. I can always put you in touch with another coordinator if you're hiring from a different area. All right, so that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
I can pop on here. I have a couple, Paula.
Mhm.
Um, what is there any kind of advice that you could give to employers? As you know, workforce issues are an issue across the province and especially in our region about how they can attract, I guess, the best students. How do they set themselves apart? Because I think the days are gone where there's just people lined up to fill your position. You have to
Mhm.
remain competitive. And what can employers do to make themselves more attractive to co-op students?
For sure. So we are seeing this with employers even within Guelph, where sometimes the small businesses it's hard because they don't have that brand recognition piece to kind of attract the applicants they're looking for. So my advice is always to post nice and early and include a very detailed job description. And that includes kind of any additional work perks like opportunities for additional training and things like that to kind of give the student a really good sense of the company culture. We have this conversation with students often and that sometimes they just want to work for the big companies that they've heard of, but we let them know sometimes these smaller companies have a really great opportunity to say work directly with the CEO or work directly with the operations manager. And sometimes those experiences are actually more beneficial to our students than being one of 10 students at a big bank or something like that.
Certainly. And just looking with how trends are going, is there an opportunity for students to um, do remote work? So, for example, if an employer was not located within our region but wanted to hire a University of Guelph student, is that an option?
Yeah, definitely. I would say this fall, I would say the majority of our students were working remotely, at least in the arts and business sector. So a lot of students are comfortable and kind of set up to work online. Our advice with that is always just to kind of make sure there's a little bit more additional training and more opportunity for supervision and things like that. But we have students, working for the federal government, but still in their apartments in Guelph. So it's not uncommon for employers to be hiring remotely right now.
Okay. It just the other thing that you mentioned is that employers can be more successful in recruiting and kind of retaining those people if they set out the expectations ahead of time through like a really detailed job description. Um, there are. Could you review the supports for employers to help develop these things?
For sure. So, I mean, the co op coordinators can work with the employers directly to develop the job descriptions. I've done that in the past, especially for some who've maybe never hired a student before and don't really know what to include. Um, but I would say, kind of including those crucial details about work location, if they are going into the office, what's the expectations there. Rate of pay is always great to include just so students can kind of self select and you don't end up in that situation where you've interviewed someone you are really interested in and
Mhm.
ultimately the location or pay doesn't work for them.
Okay, great. And I think that's all the questions I have, unless the other people on my team have questions. But Paula, you had also mentioned that you have a pay grid available.
Yes.
So if
Mhm.
you wanted to just email that to me, we are going to do a big follow-up email to everyone that's registered, that will have a full list of all of the different resources from all the different schools. So if you just want to send that to me, I can take care of that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I
Any
guess if there's no other questions, or thank you very much, Paula, for your time. I really appreciate, now that we have this, full package of information about co-op opportunities for our employers. I just want to thank you for participating.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.